Over the past 5 months, 3 U.S. bankers have been sentenced to death for their acts of fraud and robbery, for destroying... What's that? I'm sorry, this is in Vietnam. In Vietnam, 3 bankers have been sentenced to death. And even though I'm against the death penalty, that sounds pretty nice. Sounds like an improvement on the American system of sentencing Wall Street con artists to 20 years to life on a yacht, a government position, and a Parisian mistress who always smells amazing. Something lavender she does? I don't know what it is. And not only has Trump given the economy to Goldman Sachs, just as Obama did, but this week we learned Wall Street fines are down a whopping 66% under Trump. We truly live in a kleptocracy, ruled by thieves. But you wouldn't know it if you get your news from Google. We have new evidence that their new search protocol restricts access to left-wing websites. Since April, alternate traffic fell by 63%. Global research down by 62. Socialist Worker down by 47. Media Matters fell 42. Democracy Now! 36 down. WikiLeaks 30. Truth Out 25. And lastly, down by a full 53% is pinkocommie.ralphnader/hippietard. Which is where I get all my news. So basically, the sites most likely to talk about the destruction of our planet by greed, war, and climate change are being decimated by Google. Google's motto really used to be, don't be evil. It really did. When it first started, it was don't be evil. But many people don't know they changed that motto a few years ago to cause human extinction via capitalism. That's the new motto. If you listen to Papa Google and don't read those sites, you're less likely to know important things, such as the fact that Trump keeps filling posts with military generals. And I get that people are happy there are some adults in the White House for a change. I understand that. But when generals take over the executive branch, isn't that called a coup? Glenn Greenwald this week agreed with Brian Butler, who said it would be sensationalizing things to call this a soft coup. But it is impossible to deny that real presidential powers have been diluted or usurped. Oh, allow me. It's a soft coup! And on one hand, like most of America, I am relieved that our chimpanzee ass of a president has less power now. But a soft coup is not something to celebrate. It's like if you saw a 3-year-old pick up a handgun and start waving it around, you'd think, let's get that gun away from the toddler. You know, let's take that away. But we have basically taken the gun away, replaced it with an automatic rifle, and given it to Gary Busey. So, tough to say which is worse, really. Maybe these generals are the reason that Trump went from saying he might pull troops out of Afghanistan. It was a big deal. He was saying he might do that. To this week, he's considering listening to the founder of Blackwater and privatizing the war in Afghanistan. This is disgusting. Sending men and women out there to kill for money instead of sending them out there to kill for a college education the way God intended. Doesn't matter. The important thing is that we keep our troops over there, because since we invaded Afghanistan, opium production has skyrocketed. Apparently, widespread insecurity and no government oversight has done wonderful things for poppy farmers. It really has. And if there's one thing we're good at bringing to a region, it's insecurity. We're like a hot dog salesman, except instead of hot dogs, we destroy your country. Afghanistan provides 90% of the world's opium, and we here in the U.S. use 80% of that. We do. This is truly a crisis, with overdoses in 1 year killing more Americans than the entire war in Vietnam. In fact, the chart of number of overdoses looks a lot like the chart of opium production. Also, you notice if you're a human from Afghanistan, it's nearly impossible to get into the U.S. under Trump. But if you're a plant from Afghanistan, our doors are open. Please, come on. Welcome. You are welcome here. They're currently changing the plaque on the Statue of Liberty to give me your opium, your cocaine, your ketamine, yearning to be inhaled. All right, so let's review. U.S. troops breed insecurity, which breeds opium, which breeds overdoses, but also breeds loads of money for corrupt politicians. Christ, that's depressing. Don't you guys have any good news in the goddamn control room, can't you? All right, that's just but that was just a good news animation. That's not actual good news. Okay, wait, here we go. A nanochip device could heal injuries or regrow organs with one touch, according to scientists. They announced that this week. This is great news for many suffering around the world. But can you wait until the Koch brothers have died first? Can you just don't start regrowing organs yet? The Grim Reaper has work to do, all right? Just wait for the Koch brothers and Mitch McConnell and Martin Shkreli and Kelsey Grammer. You know what? Just maybe just wait until humans wipe ourselves out and then leave the device for the animals to use later. How's that sound? News about Monsanto, a giant agrochemical cultural rape monster, Monsanto. I don't think that's on their sign. Monsanto is finally standing up for itself. Apparently they learned from their GMO crops, which can also stand up for themselves. But it's like a baby giraffe fresh out of the womb. They're all wobbly, and it's still in beta, really. So, but Monsanto is standing up against the idea that their totally awesome, my friend and yours weed killer, glyphosate, a.k.a. Roundup, also causes cancer. So it might be a weed killer and a human killer, which at least that'd save room on the label, right? You just killer, multi-purpose. Weeds, raccoons, humans, what have you, A couple years ago, the World Health Organization declared that Roundup weed killer probably causes cancer. This was a big deal because it meant that a chemical sprayed into the air of millions of people for decades could be killing us. But Monsanto did the right thing. They submitted Roundup to extensive, unbiased testing and paid billions to the families who had lost loved ones. I'm kidding. They didn't. Paid billions. Oh, I can't breathe. Okay. No, Monsanto flipped out and said, we would never market a chemical that could harm humans. Then someone said, aren't you the people that created Agent Orange? The chemical sprayed by the U.S. military over Vietnam? And Monsanto said, you didn't let me finish. We would never market a chemical that could harm humans in recent years. Like the past 10 years. Anything before that, who remembers? It was crazy times. Drugs, sex, bell-bottoms, spraying chemicals over innocent people. Sure, I experimented, but who didn't? But then, a couple of weeks ago, Reuters put out an article defending them and saying there was a problem with the WHO's cancer classification. But the Reuters article, weirdly, is written like it's a film noir in which the villainous scientists at the World Health Organization are trying to sinisterly help people not get cancer. When Aaron Blair sat down to chair a week-long meeting of 17 specialists at the International Agency for Research on Cancer, there was something he wasn't telling them. The epidemiologist from the U.S. National Cancer Institute had seen important unpublished scientific data showing no link between glyphosate and cancer. And his client, she had gams to die for. Literally. The dame was trouble, I tell you. She was a 10.5, but I'll say 11. Because with Monsanto, you gotta round up. it's a weird article. What they don't mention in the article is, of course, the panel doesn't take into account unpublished studies. Otherwise, any asshole from his basement could be like, I tested Roundup on my cat, and it turned into my dog. And here's my study. Hasn't been published yet in a scientific journal. Even the terminology Reuters uses seems biased to help out Monsanto. They call the newer study fresh data 6 times. It's like, fresh data, fresh data. Woo-wee, that data's fresher than a Louisiana catfish straight out of the bayou. Oh, fresher than a yellow and blue makes green seal on a newly short ball. I don't know what that means. So we here at Redacted Tonight looked into what this fresh data was, where it came from. Well, it's from the Agricultural Health Study, which seems to have a lot of connections to the universities of Iowa State and North Carolina State. So the research page for North Carolina State says proudly, Monsanto has a long-standing collaborative relationship with North Carolina State. And when a university says they have a long-standing relationship with a massive corporation, they're not talking about rounds of Parcheesi, all right? They're talking about sacks of money. So really what the website should say is Monsanto has a long-standing history of corrupting the research of North Carolina State. Then there's Iowa State. Well, there's no relationship there between the two, except for the one Monsanto brags about on their own website, or the one that Iowa State brags about on their own website. They established a Monsanto faculty chair, for God's sakes, which is like a regular chair, except it gives you ass cancer. And there have been many articles written on how corporate funding does corrupt university research. But Lee, that is not the only study that says glyphosate is not cancerous. The EPA says it's fine. Funny you should mention that. The Natural Research Defense Council said the EPA was actually split on the decision, and they found serious problems with how Monsanto scientists and the EPA tried to prove the herbicide was not cancerous. Then, just last week, newly released docs show Monsanto executives colluding with corrupted EPA officials to manipulate scientific data. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., lawyer and son of, can't remember. I think it might be Elvis. Robert Kennedy Jr. said, this trove shows Monsanto executives colluding with corrupted EPA officials to manipulate and bury scientific data to kill studies when preliminary data threatened Monsanto's commercial ambitions, bribing scientists, ghostwriting their publications, and purchasing peer review to conceal information. Oh, good. So they basically turned the scientific process into Cosa Nostra. In one internal email from Donna Farmer, Monsanto's toxicologist responsible for glyphosate products worldwide, she instructs someone not to say the statement, Roundup doesn't cause cancer, because in studies with laboratory animals, even death is seen. And in humans, mild reversible eye and skin irritation are seen with normal use, and death can occur in suicide attempts. Therefore, we advise using the phrase, when Roundup herbicides are used according to label directions, no unreasonable adverse effects to people, wildlife, and the environment are expected. Now, I actually have no problem with the part about death can occur with suicide attempts, because death can occur with anything with suicide attempts. You know, you could probably kill yourself with NBC's Little Big Shots if you really tried. You just Clockwork Oranged it. No, my problem is with the phrase, no adverse effects are expected. Are expected. Could they happen? Absolutely they could happen. So we can't legally say Roundup doesn't cause cancer. But we can say this 3-paragraph word diarrhea that confuses everyone. Monsanto doesn't just spray toxic chemicals on farms, which then end up in our food. It hoses down our democracy with bought-off politicians. It taints our EPA and our universities with bribed research. It laminates our society in a nice sheen of for-profit shit that sparkles like glitter on a stripper's butt cheeks. And men can be strippers too, all right? Sick of your gender normative bullshit. There are many ways to solve the Monsanto problem, but I'll just throw one out there. Democratize corporations. If the workers of Monsanto owned Monsanto and voted on its decisions, they would never vote to spray their own communities with cancer or ship their jobs overseas or pay the CEO $11 million a year. It's time the workers of this country take a lesson from Monsanto's GMO vegetables and stand up for yourselves. Coming from Washington, D.C., the